Greetings, young scholars. Welcome back. Chapter 5, Part 2, Consumer Markets and Buyer Behavior. And this big Saints win yesterday. So let's talk about types of buying decision behavior. Think of two purchases, one of toothpaste and one of a car, right? Some purchases, like toothpaste, are simple and routine. You probably have a brand that you use all the time. You just go get it, right? You don't go through a long, laborious decision-making process. It's not a complex buying behavior. But think of all that goes into buying a new car. Because cars are complicated, because cars are expensive, right? You're way more involved in that type of purchase decision than you are toothpaste, right? So these four types: complex buying behavior, distance reducing buying behavior, habitual buying behavior, and then variety seeking. We're going to talk about them individually or as part of a model or a framework as we move along. So you can see, if we categorize a car as a high involvement with significant differences between brands, I believe we could all agree to that. That's going to put a car in the complex buying behavior scenario, right? If low involvement and few differences between the brands, this would be my paste example, right? We've already categorized automobiles as here. How about salt as being here? Now, where would we put flooring? How about cookies? This would be cookies. Variety seeking buying behavior. Hardly anybody buys the same cookies every week at the grocery store. There's a lot of brand switching and things like that go on. So that's going to be low involvement with significant differences between brands. And then I'm going to put flooring down here. Few differences between brands, even though they would tell you that there's just, a great amount of difference between flooring product. And high involvement, right? Something you can look at every day. It's expensive. Purchased infrequently. So that's example of those. So what category often uses price and promotions to promote buying, do you think? I'm going to leave that. Then you can mull it over. This is the classic buyer decision process, right? 5 steps. You'll run across this in the rest of your collegiate career. If you're a marketing major, you will, or maybe even management. I don't know. We're going to talk about each stage from need recognition to post-purchase behavior. You'll notice that the purchase decision is not the last step. Just getting a consumer to purchase is not the end of the journey. Some buyers pass quickly or slowly through this process. Some pass quickly through some stages and more slowly through the other ones. If it's a routine purchase, back to toothpaste, you may skip this altogether, right? Maybe you have the need recognition in the morning, your toothpaste is low, but you're going to get whatever brand you're going to get, and you're not going to go through all of these things, all of these steps. But let's just suppose that you are. Need recognition. You could see an advertisement for something and say, I need that. I think that might be something that I need. Or you could be talking to a friend or just thinking it's about time to get a new car. So it can be triggered internal or external. You can just say, you could be thinking, I need a new car. Or you could see a billboard or an advertisement or talk to a friend, and that could stimulate you to think, I have a need. And then typically you'll go in an information search. Most information comes from commercial sources that are those that circle it right here. Those sources are controlled by the marketer. However, the most effective sources, as we've talked about before, are personal sources or word of mouth from people that you know or respect. They have a track record of being, an expert on guitars or whatever, and that's much more. You can get as much of that, but it's the gold standard, right? So let's say you're looking for a car, and so you public sources, experiential sources, maybe you rented one of these cars before, or maybe on your next trip you're going to rent one. You can see what it's like. So you're motivated to search for more information, and you do that, and then you evaluate your alternatives. So it depends on the consumer and the buying situation. Uh, it may involve logical thinking and really careful. You might work out the calculations. Can you afford it? Or you might just, buy it on impulse or rely on a gut feeling. But the trick or the key to an alternative evaluation stage is, from a business perspective or a marketer, we want to be in that consideration set, right? If somebody's looking at schools and they're going to narrow it down to 3, we want the right school of business to be in this consideration set that they're going to choose from. If you don't get in the consideration set, then you're out. So at this stage, we want to be in that set that they're evaluating, that they're going to choose from. And then we have the purchase decision. All right. So I don't know why that's messed up, but it is. Great googly moogly. So once the evaluation is complete, you generally will buy the most preferred brand. However, you may choose not to buy at all, and you may loop right back around to an information search, or you may loop around to a need recognition. Maybe what you were looking for, in reality, it turns out, well, maybe that's not exactly what I need, right? So you can make a purchase decision, or you can choose not to, for a myriad of reasons. But let's say that you do. The post-purchase behavior comes after that. Are you satisfied, or are you dissatisfied with your purchase? Typically, that answer is going to rely on what the consumer expectations were, what they expected the good or service to be, and how well the product's performance is perceived. So times you bought something that says, oh, it'll do this and this and this, and you get it and you go, it won't do any of that, or it only does one of those things really well, right? That leads to dissatisfaction. So it's better to, everybody's heard the phrase under promise and over deliver. That's a way to build satisfaction, because if the consumer is not satisfied, or they're beset with cognitive dissonance, and what is the term most used by the general public that everyone within the sound of my voice and all ships at sea has heard? Let's say this lady, she went shopping and she got home and she said, I spent too much money, or I don't need this many winter clothes. Buyer's remorse, right? So during the post-purchase behavior stage, people can have buyer's remorse for a number of reasons. They're dissatisfied because it doesn't do what they think it'll do. They spent too much money. They shouldn't have, bought the stuff out of season or whatever. That's important because you want people to be happy with their purchase, even when they get home. So let me just mention risk here. Risk is inherent in everything. And especially the lower the risk, the greater the chances that somebody will buy, the greater likelihood to purchase. Think, why do people offer warranties? Why are car dealers always competing about the warranty that they offer? Because the presence of a warranty reduces risk, which improves likelihood to purchase, right? So perceived risk is always subjective in nature and differs from people to people, right? When buying products have a higher perceived risk, that could be because of cost or a large long-term commitment, any number of reasons. Consumers often consult experts, family, or friends about the product and then make their decision. A common observation is that for products of high perceived risk, a majority of consumers tend to favor the market leader. So if it's very risky, you're buying an air conditioning unit, maybe you just buy a train because you've heard of that before. Or it's between car X and a GMC, and you say, at least I know where the GMC dealer is. I don't know where this other guy is. Risk is inherent, right? It's ubiquitous and everywhere. It's easier to sell something when you've reduced the risk to the consumer, or at least the perceived risk that they feel about the purchase. So let's talk about the adoption process. You hear about an innovation. This is the journey from hearing about it to the final regular use. All right. So it starts with the stages, starts with awareness, interest. Something makes you aware, a commercial or a person makes you aware that this exists. You have some interest or none, in which case you stop right there. Evaluation. Can you try it out? And then adoption. You purchase it. Okay. So we're talking about new products here. And the next slide is going to have a chart, but think about iPhones have really been making incremental improvements in the product. But the first few iPhones that came out, they were new to the world products. They were real, it was something. And people that stand in line, are typically up here. People that get it after everybody else has it are down here. And then a lot of us are in the middle. What percentage? Well, let's see. Innovators, right? They're the first ones they want to have it, right? Brand new, they're not afraid, or maybe they just lost. Everybody's different in their readiness for a new product, right? Innovators are adventurous, and they have a high risk appetite. They have a higher risk appetite here than does a lagging adopter over here. They're not big on risk. Okay, so then we have early adopters, see up to 13.5%. This is based on relative time to adopt innovations. So these are new to the world type things. They adopt new ideas early, but they're a little more careful about it. right? They might let their buddy, their friend, tell them about this new thing that they picked up, and then they might go out there. It's still pretty hot, still quite a bit of risk involved, but they'll move into that stage. We've got 68% of people operate in early mainstream or late mainstream, right? Early mainstream uh, buyers are deliberate, but they still adopt new ideas before the average person, but not way ahead of the average person. And then late mainstream is more skeptical. After a after a majority of people have it and they've worked out all the kinks of it, uh, then late mainstream will check it out. Lagging adopters, they're suspicious of change and they're not all that warmed up on it anyway. So uh, these are the adopter categories based on a relative x-axis time and percentage share of all adopters. You can see by the time we get up here, we've got nearly everybody. So the biggest group is early and late mainstream, with only a few people jumping out, standing in line, waiting all night to get the brand new product. Now, what influences the rate of adoption of a new product? Well, is it better than existing products in that category? It's called relative advantage. To what degree is it superior to existing products that are already on the marketplace that we have some familiarity with? Compatibility. Does it fit the values and experiences of potential customers? Is it something they can understand, or is it so outlandish that they just can't see how it can fit into their life? Is it complex? Is it hard to understand, hard to use? The harder it is to uh, improve on the rate of adoption. Uh, if people can't understand it, they typically won't use it. Divisibility. Can we try it out? Right? Is there some trial purpose? I saw an ad for Carvana yesterday. You know, where you can pick out a car online, they bring it to your house. And I noticed they were encouraging people to take it on a trip, bring it back, and if you don't like it, they'll come pick it up. So if somebody says, "Well, I don't really want to buy a car over the internet," that's Carvana instituting a trialability, letting people check it out first and lowering the risk if they can just send it back if they didn't like the whole thing. And then communicability, the degree to which the results of using the innovation can be observed and can be described to others, right? So the easier it is to understand and describe, and if we can try it out first and it fits in our lifestyle without having to make a lot of changes, and it's much better, we'll speed up the adoption process, right? So that ends chapter 5 with the last slide snuck up on me. All right. So that is part 2 to go along with part 1. It's already been done. And everybody stay safe out there. And I will see you on the internet.